So ladies and gentlemen, we'll now begin with the second panel discussion. The theme for the discussion is Big Data and Artificial Intelligence Driving the Digital Revolution in Insurance and Reinsurance. For this, I kindly request Mr. Joydeep Roy, Senior Partner, PwC, Mr. H. Krishnamurthy, former Research Scientist, IISc, Mr. Prakash Vishwanathan, Founder and CEO, Gradatim, Mr. Balaji Bhaktavachalam, General Manager, DXC Technology, Singapore, and Mr. Vikas Vadhera, Ex-Director, RMS, to kindly come upon stage and form the dais. Thank you, sirs. Before the panel discussion begins, may I take the opportunity to introduce you to the panelists. But before that, I request my colleagues to kindly welcome the guests with a floral bouquet. Thank you so much. The moderator for the panel discussion is Mr. Joydeep Roy. Sir is the Senior Partner and the Global Leader of Insurance Digital Assets for the reputed firm PwC and heads the insurance practice for the company in India across all lines of business services. Sir is an ex-founder, CEO of L&T General Insurance and a founder team member of Tata AIA Life and Tata AIG General and has nearly 3 decades of industry experience. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. H. Krishnamurthy. Sir served the Indian Institute of Science for more than 3 decades and retired as a Chief Research Scientist in 2017. Sir is on the board of various reputed institutions like Insurance Information Bureau, Institute of Insurance and Risk Management, and Indian Financial Technology and Services. Moving forward, I would like to introduce Mr. Prakash Vishwanathan, an entrepreneur with a passion to keep things simple. Sir is the founder and CEO of Gradatim, a Bangalore-based company that offers a cloud-based digital insurance platform to insurance companies to help them effectively manage the end-to-end insurance process, acquire new customers, and grow their business. Next, we have with us Mr. Balaji Bhaktavachalam, Accounts General Manager for Digital Insurance for Strategic Accounts for DXC in Asia. Sir has been involved in delivering insurance solutions in the Asian region for over 25 years. Having worked in Singapore, Sir has also been a part of many long-term assignments with insurers from Hong Kong, Malaysia, Thailand, and India. Our next speaker is Mr. Vikas Vadhera, ex-Director RMS. Sir has over 2 decades of industry experience in research, catastrophe risk modeling, and predictive analytics. Sir is also associated with resilience initiatives for governments and societies as part of Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Education, Climate Risk, and Insurance Working Group for Geneva Association. Sir also possesses rich experience of working with clients in North America, Europe, and Asian markets. With this brief introduction, I now request the moderator to kindly commence the discussions.
Good afternoon. So we are basically standing between you and lunch. Sessions are running late, so I think we should, really move the sessions forward. So I'll not take too much of time. I'd like to actually start off by thanking NIA and Swiss Re for organizing this conference like this, because many insurance conferences happen where it's just the same topics and the same speakers that you see, and it is a refreshing change to see the practitioners, people who are scientists on these subjects are actually coming and talking about possibilities, which is a great confluence of minds, and sometimes these can act as catalysts, and these conferences should act as catalysts for new thought, new growth, rather than just talking about what needs to be solved. India has a long way to go to figure out how to adequately insure people. and certain things can really get pushed up because of technology. Home insurance is one such example which I'd like to point out to everybody. India is severely underinsured in home, and that's why in terms of natural catastrophe, insured loss is much, much lesser. I'd also like to touch upon the sandbox, which Sanjeev spoke about. Well, the sandbox term, while it is used in computers to talk about cordoning off negative stuff, it is also, its origin goes back to the founder of kindergarten, Friedrich Froebel, which when he launched sand boxes for children to play, because sand cushions and really prevents an injury from happening if you fall. So you can try new stuff, new toys, new activities, and the sand is something which actually helps you to survive if an experiment doesn't work. So it has a majorly positive connotation, and as it looks like it's got off to a good start. Look forward to some really productive experiments coming out. While we are talking about technology, and you'll be hearing from the speakers about how AI ML is useful in reinsurance, you're going to hear about how really micro sachet insurance is being made to work today. It's not something which is a concept, it is working. You will also hear about big data and NLP, how that's going to really pan out and help people to manage technology. And of course, the whole thing of geographical risk. And these are the four signature topics that you'll hear about. But let me share very quickly about what insurance CEOs and insurance CXOs globally are thinking about. So this is the 14th year of a survey that we at PwC run, called Banana Skin Survey, and many of you have contributed to it. So in this 14th year, and we identify the risks which people see as risk, quantify the risks. The top 5 risks which have been identified by reinsurance companies are as such. Number 1 is technology. Now, what do they mean by technology? It is the chaos of technology and how to harness technology, how to be nimble with technology and not to stay or not to get stuck with technology. Number 2 has been cyber. Now, the cyber also has 2 phases: cyber security of data and cyber managing the cyber environment, as well as looking at cyber insurance policies and learning how to really underwrite them properly, and learning how to pay claims, and learning how to stop a leak. Just not looking at paying the claim, but how to stop a leak so the claims don't balloon. So this has come out as number 2 worry of all global CEOs and CXOs. Number 3, not surprisingly, is climate change, but surprising that in these 14 years, climate change has only appeared 3 times, which is very funny, because that's something which actually can be cathartic and really catastrophic for people. Climate change is the only difference between the top 5 of reinsurers and insurers. In insurance companies list, there's investment performance, which comes in place of climate change. The other 2, 4 and 5, are also similar. Now, 4, the only order is different. In number 4 is change management. So reinsurance companies are identifying change management as a risk, both within themselves as well as vis-a-vis their relationship with their ecosystem and other insurers. And number 5, a point which has come in all 14 years in the top 5, is regulations. So when a global reinsurer is looking at things, or even a local reinsurer is looking at interplay, everybody's wondering how regulations will permit them to do what is right in terms of risk management. And regulations are not necessarily only insurance regulations, but regulations are also about investment and fund flow and tax regulations. So these are the top 5 risks as identified, and there's a whole lot of detail, and anybody who wants to know about the Banana Skin Survey can visit the PwC website or can contact me. But this is what people are saying, including India. The other thing which I want to mention about that is the preparedness map, which we prepare about who is most well prepared to handle such change. And you'll be probably surprised to know that North America comes pretty much way down. North America, the people who are working in that environment are saying that they are not well equipped today or not ready to handle the challenges, whereas China is. India is moderately placed. There's self-confidence when it comes out of, how do you really manage all these things which are also interconnected. There's a degree of confidence, and there's a confidence ranking that we do. So India is higher in confidence of managing ambiguity today than North America. And that comes out of the fact, I think, that North America businesses are large, and therefore the threat of disruption is high. Two more points before handover. While we talk of all these technologies finally to the customer, a technology has to result in a benefit. And customers' needs do not change. They always want things faster, they want them better, and they want them cheaper. So if these three sort of pillars are always kept, most insurers and reinsurers should be able to be successful. The amount of data, the big data that is going on, well, you have heard many examples. All our health bands and even everything, all our phones are throwing up massive amounts of data. Data is going everywhere, and sometimes I take comfort in feeling that there's so much of data, even somebody who wants to misuse data will be confused. But just to give you an example, when you take a photo with your mobile phone, there are 32 data points being recorded, right from the make of the lens, right from the date the camera was installed in the phone, to the latitude and longitude, whether you have your GPS on or not. So there's data happening, and it's for any industry, be it healthcare, health tech, fitness, and insurance industry, to see what best and how best they can harness data. And that's a segue to our first session, Professor Krishnamurthy, who will tell us about how AI ML can help reinsurers and to handle data. Thank you.
Thank you, Joydeep. Thanks to you, Mr. Srinivasan, Director NIA, and the Swiss Re team for giving me this opportunity. I'm supposed to talk to you with 10 slides in 15 minutes, the AI and ML topic, which is quite a big challenge. Just want to tell you the impact of this topic is, as of today morning, the scientific community is looking at the breakthrough that has happened in the understanding of the structure of universe using AI and ML. This is the news which is going on in the entire scientific community today. So what I'm planning to do is to not talk about the tools which the service providers have brought in the area of AI and ML. That will continue to happen. I would like to look at more from a user perspective as to what is it that we need to look at in terms of the AI and ML tools, which will be beneficial to you in your insurance and reinsurance portfolio. Next slide. So first is to understand the topic for discussion. The topic for discussion, whether you look at it as a tool or you look at it as a framework, is what is important. Tool is supposed to have a certain level of maturity. If you take the field of AI and ML, we are in the introductory phase. From here we will go into the growth trajectory. From there we will go into maturity. From there we will go into saturation. So it is just taking off right now. So most of the platforms that are available to you today in the AI and ML field is the framework. We used to teach AI and ML in 1983 to 1990. We started looking at 1990 whether AI is dead, whether AI has got resurrected now, is where we are today looking at. That is mainly because of the changes that have happened in the ecosystem, which has enabled you to look at AI and ML as products which are available today. The first change happens to be the key differentiator, which is the data. We used to always look at not working. Okay. So we used to always look at coming out with software environments to drive business, software environments to deliver the services that you are expecting for your customers. So these are the metrics that I normally define in every one of my talk with respect to what exactly is the evaluation parameters for a software. It is true for AI and ML platforms also. One of the things that you have to keep in mind is the robustness and maturity of the software environment in order for you to say that yes, this software environment will be able to deliver. What does AI and ML tools stand as on date? It is still in its stage of infancy, coming under development, will have to go through a lot of testing, and from there you will have to take it on. And more importantly, is the class of problems that AI will be able to solve today. We are used to deterministic data, we are used to deterministic algorithms, we are used to well-known solutions. Wherever you have solutions in which suboptimal answers will be acceptable to you totally, are the solutions where AI will be able to help you. So you will have to look at those kind of solutions. For example, like Jonathan mentioned, there is no need for you to process a claim within 3 seconds. If you are able to take 30 seconds also, it is fine, provided the way you process the claim and the result that you achieve from that has got much better quality. If you look at AI as a field or any other factor for that matter, you will be able to agree with me that there are certain risks which are associated. Not only that, AI will be able to understand, quantify, assess, and mitigate the risk. AI in itself will become risky sometimes. That is something that you will have to understand. So as I go by, I'll tell you about that point also. So the recent developments that have happened are the following. Number one, there is an emergence of data. We used to always handle numeric data, deterministic data. Today we have to handle structured, semi-structured, unstructured data, data which is conceptual in nature, data which is fuzzy in nature. All this is the data that we need to have. So first and foremost for you is to understand your problem, find out whether AI and ML will be able to deliver solutions to you. More importantly, understand the data that you have, the quality of data that you have, and the type of data that you have. Data has to be complete, concise, and consistent for you to actually start your way of looking at algorithms that you are thinking of. In the field of computing you have, all of us know that CPUs are the ones which we have been using. Today in high performance computing with graphical processing units, we are able to get much better insight into the problems of AI and ML. And interconnection between humans and machines is well known, and from the software development perspective, software design perspective, we are moving from monolithic architectures to component-based architectures to microservices architecture. AI and ML also is moving toward the microservices architecture in terms of service delivery. Therefore, the comeback is exponential growth in computing power and memory capacity, development of software architecture for distributed processing. Today we are trying to look at distributed processing, large number of small processors in the artificial neural networks as one of the tools that are available for you to deliver services in the insurance business. It's not only with respect to insurance, entire BFSI sector is the one which is today looking at AI and ML as a solution platform. Therefore, the concept of delivering services is something which is possible with the help of the software that's available to you using the distributed architectures, more looking at the service delivery perspective. Understanding the handling of large amount of databases which was not possible earlier, global connectivity, and significant improvement in the theoretical understanding. See, if you really look at the AI field and why the AI field did not take off earlier, that was mainly because everybody wanted to mimic the human being in the AI field. That is not the way to look at. If those people who have looked at a bird flying and then started looking at how to design and come out with an aircraft, if they have started mimicking the bird, they wouldn't have achieved anything by now. Am I right? So there is a need for you to look at what are the aspects of the human being that you will have to take into account and model that into your system. I'll talk about it in my last slide. So the potential of AI from the point of view of insurance is the one where you can improve competitiveness, improve customer experience, which my colleagues have covered for you, reduce the risk exposure, increase the profits through greater automation and efficiency, refined underwriting and segmented pricing. This is where it will play a very big role. I have the opportunity of working with two of the insurance companies as IT advisor, where we are trying to look at AI and ML platforms in order for them to do a better underwriting portfolio. And finally, the fraud prevention as well as detection. Many a times we try to look at detection. AI is a solution which will be able to do the forecasting for you and will be able to help you to do the prevention. Let me give you one example where we are working today. Most of you have got your data centers. You would have got your security operation centers. The way you have implemented security operation centers is basically from the point of view of the traditional approach that we have, which is called an SCAM based approach. But today we are moving from the traditional approach of SOC to the next generation security operation center using AI and ML. What does it mean? It means to say that alerts and alarms that will be generated with respect to the functioning of your data center is based on past data and what is available at t equal to t0. AI and ML will be able to help you to do the forecasting, which means that if your system moves from a state of stability to an unstable state, before it can move into the disaster state, AI and ML algorithms will be able to help you to bring it back to the stable state. That is where prevention helps you. So in terms of fraud prevention and detection, AI and ML will be able to help you to a large extent. Machine learning, which is a subject in itself, handles multiple ways in which you have to look at data. Supervised learning, where you have n entities which have to be brought into k meaningful groups. Unsupervised learning or clustering, where you don't know how many groups are present, but you will have to bring it either using an agglomerative method or a divisive method. Semi or partial supervised clustering, which is a combination of the two. Reinforcement, where you have credits as well as debits which are given, where the certainty with which you are taking a decision will improve based on the hypothesis that you want to have and the evidences that you have. And finally, the deep learning. This field is full of terminologies. Please understand, deep learning is a proper subset of machine learning, which is a proper subset of artificial intelligence. AI, ML, deep learning, along with the data science, are the ones which will be able to help you to come out with meaningful analytics based on the tools that you have. So the impact of AI in reinsurance addresses the data and information asymmetry. I've been a part of the team which went on a roadmap along with Insurance Information Bureau, Joydeep knows about it, is where we had to look at what is the kind of work that they have been doing and what is the roadmap that they have. This happened about 3-4 years back. One thing that we found is that there was a lot of variation between the policy data on one side and the claims data on the other side. Normally the companies have the data of their own. When there is a claim and they have to process, the insurer has his own data. There is always a difference between the two. AI and ML will be able to help you to have this data asymmetry taken care of to a very large extent, and completely alters the way the risk is perceived and modeled. One of the things that we have to look at today is to look at every one of the problems that you have from the point of view of risk modeling. For risk modeling, you need to have AI and ML, which will help you to ensure that the modeling has much better quality and enhances the efficiency of underwriting, claims processing, and product development, which I already told you. So far what we have been associated with the traditional approach for risk modeling. Today what we are looking at is an AI-based approach where we go for risk prediction, adaptive automation, intelligent process automation based on dynamic inference, analytics based on large-scale data and life cycle, focus on insights, and more proactive rather than being reactive. This is precisely what we do today with the help of AI and ML. Finally, I hope I'll have 2 more minutes of time.
Yeah, just maybe a minute here.
Yeah, finally what I would like to say is that the entire field of AI, if you start looking at it today, we look at it as ANI, Artificial Narrow Intelligence, which is exactly the work that we are doing. And there is a long way that we need to go in order for us to look at what is called as Artificial General Intelligence, which is basically the last 2 bullets. Current knowledge of the human brain is still incomplete. So the boundary has been relation between something that is not yet fully understood. Modeling of human brain is dependent on our understanding of the human brain. So unless we have a very good amount of research going on in the area of cognitive science, better understanding of the human brain, coming out with better neural networks and artificial neural networks, will still continue to be only in, as I said in the beginning, the introductory phase. So in order for us to move the AI to come out with much better decisions going forward, there is a lot of research that need to happen in these areas. So to conclude, I would like to say that in today's context, in the insurance portfolio, or for that matter, in general in the BFSI portfolio, we have started looking at AI and ML solutions, which will be able to give us the kind of results that we are expecting, more importantly, from the point of view of claims processing, from the point of view of fraud prevention. These are the two areas in which we have initiated some work, and we are working in those directions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Krishnamurthy. As usual, his ability, and which I have been witness to for 2 years, I worked with him during the formation of Insurance Information Bureau. His ability to really come down to the basic fundamental concept is what you saw there. Approaches have not changed. Applications, is basically based on imagination. So we are trying to apply those same concepts, like a neural network which is transmogrifying into an AI or a blockchain. These are all different manifestations based on use cases, and use cases is limited by our imagination as long as we find uses. So let's hear now from Balaji, who's from DXC, as to how AI and NLP are changing a very traditional part of the heart of insurance processing, which is the policy admin system. Balaji, over to you.
Good afternoon. Talking about analytics and insurance is my passion. I just want to make it a little more dramatic. So I'm just going to show you some other passion of mine which will kind of relate to this. That's me skydiving. The reason I showed it is because I was smiling. And I hope any of the insurer who has insured me is not here, because then they would just load my premiums. So why did I attribute that to analytics? You just got to keep in mind, it's like everybody having a free fall. There's huge amount of data. Okay? One of the reasons a lot of people are worried about disruption, digital disruption, not with the insurer next door, but with the tech company that has got all the data that's possible. So you're worried about Facebooks, you're worried about Googles. So that's the whole idea. So end net sum, it is all coming back to data. Okay? So that's where it's going. I'll ask you a question. How many of you think you are using, in particular insurers, using your data to its best? That's where the I would not sleep at night bit starts. You start wondering, hey, am I using it to the best? That's why the disruption is happening. You're wondering, somebody else who has all this data can literally supersede you, can steal your customer away, can improve the customer experience, can actually improve the customer engagement. That's end of it to everything where it belongs. So focus of my discussion today will be to share with you some use cases. You might have got my introduction. There were 5 different countries I belonged, or I was taking a bag and going around. My son, when he was 7 years old, he did something like 6 schools. So, but by virtue of this, I got a good hang of what's going on in various places. It was all related to insurance. And I can share with you some use cases. And I look forward, at the end of my presentation, a takeaway for you is, how can you apply it in what you are doing, just to set your mind thinking. Yep. So if you look at artificial intelligence, it is the hottest buzzword. I don't need to say more today. From start till now, I think if you put a timer on the number of times AI was used, it's quite a bit. So everybody's talking about it, and what we are looking at is, basically all the IT companies, okay, including DXC, is actually building AI component into their solutions, okay, and the bar is raising very high. It's actually going very fast and it's raising. So the question is, how best can you leverage the data that you have? That's where this whole thing is going towards. I got another indication as to 50% of all business analytics software will incorporate some sort of cognitive computing. So if you look at cognitive computing, it's again kind of specified there. Machine learning is one of the fastest picking stuff. And if you look at M&A transactions, as I talked to you, yesterday I was just looking at ServiceNow, for example, they just bought an AI company. You'll wonder, ServiceNow is a virtual management software. What in earth they want to do in AI, but they have bought an AI company. So that's the way it is going. If you look at the right-hand side or your left-hand side, you can see that a lot of companies are into the acquisition space, especially towards the AI area. If I kind of break down how it is affecting, the business operations, what is happening now is classic programming is actually getting into learning. Okay, all this NLP embedded stuff is actually helping you to convert emails, convert voice, etc., into text, and then use text to get your business outcomes. So where is it getting affected? If you look at monitoring, you're looking at application systems in the infra, in the software application space. They're all using NLP towards business outcome management. If you look at areas like service quality, call center, I'll come into some use cases later. Purely data from call centers which are getting analyzed, which are getting mixed with social media, etc., to give a better outcome. And then decision augmentation. So you're looking at positive business outcomes based on software, algorithms, etc. And basically this whole space is getting commoditized. And where it's going towards is you're looking at coming to automated tasks, and you're looking at workflows based on outcomes. So everything is dynamic, nothing is static at all there. I want to just share with you something which at DXC we did, and I know many other companies are also doing this. This is something one of its kind. We actually did it in Singapore. We have actually tied up with EDB in Singapore, and the regulator there has invested or co-invested, where we are actually working with an Australian company. This is something called the digital human. It's quite impressive. So what happens actually is, depending on your culture, your background, language, etc., the digital human kiosk, the human that comes up, will be somebody you can identify with. Okay, and this digital human would actually look at all your muscles in the face, look at your mannerisms, look at various aspects, how you are answering a question, and based on the data that you're having, plus history of the data, in the sense, what is your social media experience, what is your background, if it is a bank, data from your banking records, etc., your credit card history, all that is mixed, and this is all into an unstructured form, and then it structurizes it into parameters, and then it starts coaching the digital human to actually get an idea of what your sentiment is, what the customer's sentiment is, and predict which type of product he's going to buy or she's going to buy, what type of feeling that person is exhibiting when you are doing a customer service transaction, how to engage with this customer. And the same thing, we are actually doing a pilot with a company in Japan, and the same thing is coming along towards the agency side. That's even more amazing to think that it's going to be used to evaluate agents, to improve their agency effectiveness, and to also do a bit of CBT, train agents for right selling, etc. So these things are in play. And I used to wonder 2 years ago, is this just one of those things which will be a hype and it'll just disappear? But honestly, it's getting to a stage where the processing scalability, the predictability, the consistency is going so high that NLP is actually getting better and better. And again, it's an ecosystem. You don't need to go develop this. We have tied up with a company which specializes in digital humans. And then you just get into the ecosystem and get this going. Yep. So the areas in the technology side which help this is basically, I come from a technical background, but I don't want to get into the details, but basically I can just leave some thoughts. What we are doing again is we are tapping upon an ecosystem. So there are companies which specialize in face APIs. I mean, from start to end, they're only looking at how a person's reactions are going to be evaluated. Similarly, text analytics. All the communication that you have had with the company in form of emails, forms, etc., 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 all that gets digested and gets into a text in an unstructured / structured form, which you can use for your analytics. Then you have search APIs, where you pick up APIs from InsurTechs, various industry people, and then computer vision APIs. Okay, so these are things. And then there's another use case I want to share. Is something, again, we are doing a pilot for a claim straight-through processing. Again, this one is a very standard NLP kind of thing, where all the details that the claimant has in form of emails, in form of exchanges with the insurance company, is actually converted to text, and from there we are able to put it in a database which would be queried based on certain rules due to the product, etc., and it would actually process the claim. And if you look at this, I've been part of a pilot, and that company is going to implement this. Their no-touch processing of claims improved by 40%. It's absolutely number crunching in the back. It's impossible to think manually you can give this sort of efficiency. And it's again commoditizing this whole space. Okay. Next bit, which we again had a use case, is about campaign effectiveness. This is very interesting. I mean, I don't have much time to talk about the details, but oops. Okay. Okay. It's about how data is actually, like sliced and diced, and improving of cross-selling, upselling, etc. Okay. Then there's another area which I wanted to cover is claims fraud. So claims is one area that a lot of insurers are having real difficulty in identifying fraud. So we are using something called graph analytics. Okay. Here again, it's more in the automotive side, automobile insurance, but we are also pushing it for the health insurance aspects, where you have multiple entities, and these entities are all cross-referenced through the graph analytics concept. And the beauty of this is these entities change their role, because the guys who are trying to do fraud are becoming smarter by the day. It's impossible to figure out in a standard way. So this whole concept is to look at revolutionizing that and making it auto. So the next slide is giving you some details about it. I'll not go into it, and I just wanted to touch this alone. Another area which we are really looking at is voice analytics and NLP. This is purely on a call center. All the information is tracked and put. So any engagement with the customer is not of waste. Everything you're using to get some info out of it, and the people who are smarter are going to be getting the business. That's the idea. Again, some details about that on cross-sell, upsell. But finally, before I end, the takeaway, takeaway is about using this technology to understand your customer better, improve the customer experience, and get his sentiment, help your business to reduce cost and to automate processes. So that's the whole game that it's going towards, and with agents, it's towards gamification, etc. It's a huge area, and I'll be quite happy to discuss with you during lunch or later as we go along. It's something very good, and I'm hoping that the insurance industry uses this to the best, because a lot of banks have started getting into that and looking for the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Balaji. So no doubt, voice, image, video are going to be the inputs, as we're going forward. The day of pen and as even typing and all is becoming difficult. The screen is getting smaller, our fingers are not. Since you mentioned the use case as call center servicing, I can't resist saying that recently a bank had to withdraw its bot, which was a machine learning bot, withdraw not permanently, but to just repair an defect. Well, it was not a defect, it was a fabulous bot which used to learn everything. And off microphone, when the call center agents were talking in slang, it picked up the slang. So then it started addressing customers with the slang. There's a real case study about 3 months back. The bot had to be withdrawn because technically it was a superior product, but the bot was learning and was able to apply it correctly. Question was, what was it doing? Was it right for the customer? So that's the human part comes in. So I'd like to, at this time, bring in CV Prakash. Prakash is the founder of something which is India's probably the first micro-insurance, sachet insurance processing systems, which is widely used now across the world, rated as one of the best systems by Microsoft once upon a time. Over to you, Prakash.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Pardon my voice a bit. I've been talking too much the last 10 days. I will pause for 10 seconds and I will ask you whether you can make sense of what you're seeing on the board. I don't think it does. It never made sense to me. I don't think it will make sense to anyone. So we all talk about big data and artificial intelligence. I'm probably here for the next 5 minutes just to share what I have seen and what I have seen working and what I have seen insurers work on. So very simply put, today when we talk about AI, I would like to feel that we can split it into 3 basic stuff. And that is, you get a powerful infrastructure. 5 years ago, you couldn't do it. 3 years ago, you could do it if you had the guts to do it. Today, you will do it because the world is doing it. The cloud is here to stay, and the cloud is the most powerful infrastructure that you will ever need, and the only infrastructure that you will ever need for you to manage your AI, whatever be it, any of your AI programs. There are a lot of technologies available. Trust me, I'm not going to get into that. There is NLP computing, there's the augmented analytics, there is brilliant graphical interfaces that is available, there's data fabric that's available, all of them. Trust me, you will probably use only 20% of what is available. You don't need to do everything else. Just select the right technology. And the most important thing in AI, get the team right. You need a team that is practical and can implement it without much of a complexity. That's the most critical thing that I have seen here. I will share 3 simple examples that I have seen insurers work at. An area which has become very popular and which got the 2017 Nobel Prize for Economics, Richard Thaler's nudge theory. This is a theory that has been put into use by many insurers. We had a company which does cross-sell, upsell in the US being bought out by Prudential for an obscene $1.2 billion in the last 3 months. a phenomenal area of technology which every insurance company should look at to be able to sell more to your existing customers and sell to customers who often are looking for a product as and when you do it. This is a functional technology that exists today, and it can be implemented without much of a challenge. Even Gartner says, they are the ones whom we talk about. If you look at what Gartner says, chatbots, digital pods, auto ML, these are all the things that have reached the hype. What has reached its potential? It is speech recognition and a few other things. So everything that you hear about AI and ML, trust me, they are either in some way of going up or some of them are already falling behind. So you need to be very careful about what you choose. Don't just go by what technology guys tell you. I come from a technology company and we have an enormous ability to tell you things which can confuse everyone across, okay? This is an area of interest for a lot of people, cyber security, cyber insurance. And one of the best implementation modes that we have seen is actually to go and evaluate a cyber infrastructure and then go and say, how will I insure it? This is the best way to do it. Don't just look at it from how you insure it, look at it from how it is implemented. Property and casualty insurance, it's easily adaptable. The way AI has grown today, most of what we have seen today is on image analysis, data analysis, document analysis, picture analysis. So look at those areas, look at a picture, see whether they have modified things, whether things have been brought into it, keep monitoring it, seeing how you do it. It's a very simple way of applying AI to it. My last slide, let's be realistic. For all the buzzwords that we have seen today, like I said, pattern recognition, image recognition, video recognition, this is where Microsoft's, IBM's drive us. They are the ones who provide us with the tools and technologies. This is where there is enormous amount of opportunity that is there. There's one very simple aspect which I saw recently across a couple of insurance companies, which is most of them don't seem to even trust a 4-eye principle. They seem to trust a 6-eye principle. They say we have a maker, checker, and we have somebody who will again look at it and say, I will validate it. Please don't do that. It costs 5 rupees an hour to do a minimum employment in India today. So if you want to look at it, look at this aspect for AI, where decision making sometimes you can lead it to the technology. Productivity gains, we are seeing a lot of it today, but digital mesh, a great example of what we are seeing progress today. I will leave you with that because I think we have one more speaker before we speak for lunch. Thank you.
Thanks, Prakash. Trying to be the voice of reason and getting people the glimpse into what really matters. And the Gartner curve is absolutely very, very valid, and it keeps changing, it keeps shifting, newer things coming, newer. And if you really paid attention to the fact that in the first slide, there's so much happening. One is to make sense out of it. What do you really want to do? And so, one important aspect of insurance, or the most important aspect of insurance, being risk management, we can't ignore that, right? And for that, I'd like to invite Vikas Vadera. But because before that, I just realized that this is a random panel, right, arranged by NIA. But I've sat and worked with Mr. Krishnamurthy, seen him at work. I've seen him at work, being his customer. I've been a customer of DXC, now a partner, and of course, a very, very happy customer of RMS at one point of time. RMS has done pioneering work on geographical risk, and geographical risk doesn't mean only flood or drought, and that's what I think I'd ask Vikas to speak, how big data and all plays a part. Vikas, over to you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. trust me, I have greater appreciation for your hunger pangs, so won't come between you and lunch. Try to wrap this within 8 to 10 minutes. We have been hearing a lot about the technological aspects of how the insurance and reinsurance operations will be done in the future or are being currently done. How technology has created not a sort of disruption, but has become greater enabler how the business is now done and being written. But I've been a catastrophe modeler throughout my life and have always looked at the insurance and reinsurance business as more of a risk landscape, that how the risk landscape is, and more importantly, how it is changing over a period of time. And if we look at these two graphs, this is a Swiss Re Sigma report. These two graphs, at the top we see that there is a sheer the number of catastrophe events, and on the bottom chart there are the insured catastrophe losses. Both these charts and exhibits represent the same story, that there has been an increase in the number of events in the second half. So if you look at this data is for about 50 years, the first 25 years the number of events and the insured losses are lesser, whereas in the second half they have gone higher, both in terms of the number of actual events versus the losses. This has been the story which we have observed over the last couple of decades. But what is more important is what is driving this, and how we as the modeling and the technological companies are helping insurers and reinsurers to solve for this problem, address some of these challenges, if not all. So 2017 was one of the biggest years in terms of the losses that reinsurance and insurance industry faced. But 2018, if we couple these 2 years, 2 consecutive years make for the highest ever in 2 consecutive years. But 2018 also posed some sort of key messaging for us that we need to aware of, which is that 2018 losses were primarily driven by secondary perils. If we look at historically, most of the losses in natural catastrophe events, or for that matter man-made catastrophes like terrorism, have happened from big earthquakes or big flooding events and some terrorism attacks like World Trade Center. But in 2018 there were like campfires and other flooding events that led the total losses that industry faced. So there is a need for the insurance and reinsurance companies to focus on those perils which were taking a secondary seat in the past. One of the things that is at the core and at the heart of insurance and reinsurance business is the exposure. So I always vouch that if we have got our exposures right, if we have got a sense how our exposures are organized, probably we have solved for a major chunk of the issues that we face today. Even catastrophe models can only be helpful when we have the right exposures in place, because unlocking the value, the scientific value that sits behind these CAT models can only be leveraged if we have our exposures organized at the highest possible resolution. Now this particular exhibit shows that how globalization has led to the interconnectivity between the exposures that spread across globally. Earlier the risk and the exposures probably were more regional in nature, but now they have become more global in nature. Thailand floods of 2011 remind us how a flooding event could impact and bring the world to a standstill. The production units in Europe and other parts of the world came to a standstill because nothing could be delivered, or the parts that were supposed to come from Thailand, they could not be delivered in time, and there was a lot of business interruption losses. So what are the key reasons? Climate change is obviously one. Exposure monitoring and exposure landscape itself, the exposure now is developing in areas which are more prone to catastrophes. So we all need to be very vigilant about that we have the right technologies, the right tools to understand data, where our exposures are, and what is becoming more important is that we need to now create risk zones, and we need to know that how or where our exposures are, whether they are in transit on land, whether they are in transit on port, or on some vessel on the sea. So for example, that the real-time data is becoming the need of the hour. So, if your exposure is sitting on a port and there is an event that's stuck on a particular date, if we look at the 1 day period, then probably we'll say that all that exposure has been hit. But if we go further granular and start looking at morning and evening, or we do hourly monitoring of our exposures, maybe the exposure that was in transit that left the port in the morning and the event struck somewhere in the afternoon. So that exposure probably is out of reach when we consider that event. So that's where the emerging technologies and the GS technologies especially help us determining how we can be more resilient in terms of our estimation of exposures and the resulting losses. So this exhibit just tells that how we are looking at now monitoring our exposures. That should we look at crest and province level aggregates, that does not give us more information. But if we have a building level site specific information or street level information, then these models can also help us build those scenarios that can happen in future. And if we continually make an effort to improve the data quality, then that's going to help us be in a place where we have right portfolio risk management strategies built in advance. When the event happens, we have better response strategy to deal with it. We can't stop events from happening, but we can develop strategies that help us take care of our own protection and deliver a profitable business. It is also mandatory, that if, while there is a thrust using GS technologies and other technologies that we heard, that operations are now being run more smoothly, but at the same time, we need to focus on marrying, these technologies with the kind of underlying exposure that we have. It's always talking about the various data layers that we have. They need to talk to each other. If our exposure resolution does not match with the models and with the technologies that we are bringing into picture, then probably it will not deliver on the expected results. So one of the key things that we are now talking these days is how the satellite imagery and the various geographical information systems are coming into place, and they are helping us make some decisions real time, some decisions by creating some scenarios in advance, and some even when the event has occurred, that is a post event scenario. GS technologies, basically, they create data layers. The data layers could be for exposure, how your real world looks like, how the data on the ground looks like. Then, the imagery tells you how the land cover is, that whether a particular area, which is high prone to risk, how your land use is in that area versus your land use in a low risk zone. So mapping all those exposures on ground with a reference datum, what we call as either latitude or longitude. So building specific information or locating something in terms of pinpointing in the form of latitude and longitude is going to, serve the purpose related to, meeting the protection that we are looking forward. And one of the things is that, when we look at the land use data, this provides a lot of insights in terms of what is the mix of that data. Is it all commercial buildings in a given area, or it's a residential concentration, or it's a big area where there are a lot of factories, because these concentrations also can help impact what could be the loss scenario when there is an event. Now, looking at it from a peril hazard perspective, so how every peril is different in nature, when we look at earthquakes, floods, hurricanes. Perils like flood require very high resolution monitoring, because from one street to another street, the damage can vary. The impact of that flooding event can vary, because depending on the elevation in the area, this could lead to a situation where on one street all the properties are flooded, whereas others they are not. So from a vulnerability perspective also, that how the structures are vulnerable, so remote sensing techniques have been applied to determine, key building characteristics, such as what construction material has been used, what is the occupancy, how old the building is, whether the structure is able to bear the brunt of the event that occurs. So all these data layers, when put together, they give rise to a sort of risk management strategy through which insurance and reinsurance companies can manage their portfolios. Along with that, when we bring more and more data layers together, and when we try to marry, these with each other, these lead to, now a term, which is very commonly used as data lake concept. So what is happening? What is happening in the data lake is that there are different data layers using which, when you overlay your exposures, you can look at various parameters that help you in decision making. GS technologies have helped in agriculture a lot. We have seen that there has been a significant growth in the agriculture insurance business, and looking at the various GS technologies have been helping in monitoring the real time growth of the crops, which can help insurers and reinsurers that what would be the crop yield in the end, and they can do decision making during the season rather than waiting for the crop to fail. Or in the real event also, there are a lot of applications, and we saw the real examples of this when Kerala floods happened a couple of years ago, where a lot of satellite imagery came into picture in order to deliver where the resources should be deployed to have the effective response. And as well as, there was a lot of imagery and photographs and videos that were uploaded by individuals, what we call as big data, the crowd data sourcing. And that helped, marrying that with the satellite pictures, led to a more effective way of dealing with the situation on the ground rather than waiting for things to happen and really, looking at that when the water recedes and only then the rehabilitation work can start. A lot of lives could be saved during that. In summary, I think, going forward, building specific information is becoming the key in the future for managing accumulations. There is that we need to work on developing industry benchmark data products that issues like missing information or inaccurate exposure data that will help bridge us gap in the exposures, and that will help utilizing the other technologies in conjunction to really lead to a situation where the risk management practices are more robust. High resolution catastrophe models are, will be the way in the future, and but more focus on the secondary perils because they are now leading the losses that they are causing. And future obviously is the informed decision making through a combination of the big data, the models, the exposure itself, and how do you look at overall your portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas. Thanks for giving us a glimpse into what happens behind every risk manager's decision making, the massive amounts of data with all those moving images and satellite images, the amount of data which comes in. It doesn't come in as a picture, right? I mean, it's basically data points. Literally, absolute massive data. Big data is probably an, understatement, and that needs to be processed and made use of. So that's where the expertise lies. So, I think you had a great glimpse of different parts of the entire spectrum, from natural language processing to risk management to how AI, how it's mystified, and how the whole process of AI ML can be seen at. Common theme has been that we have to choose carefully, and we have to choose something which works, which has got applications, and there could be different things at different stages of maturity. So, do we have time for a question, or do we go for lunch? What do you think?
We can go for lunch, sir.
Yeah, okay, let's go for lunch. I think in lunch
you can lunch.
Yeah, over lunch you can ask the questions. So to anybody that you want, we'll be there. Thank you very much. Thanks for being a great audience, and let's look forward to a tech-enabled future which truly benefits the customer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable discussion. We now request our Chair Professor Non-Life, Mr. Segar Sampat Kumar, to kindly present the dignitaries with a memento as a token of gratitude. Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, with this we come towards the end of the second session. We'll now break for lunch. The third panel discussion will begin post-lunch at 2:45 p.m. Thank you.